On behalf of the Eagle Point School District, I want to thank you, school bus drivers, for doing what is a very, very hard job. Essentially, what you are agreeing to do is what a lot of teachers avoid at all costs, and that is to teach all the instruction with the students are behind them, and it is a set of circumstances that there are a large number of kids sitting quietly for a long time without a lot to do. So you have done it very, very well, and we want to thank you for that. And the thing I'm going to talk about now is some of the statistics from last year on what a successful job you did.
Okay, for those statistics I was telling you about, last year, Eagle Point school bus drivers drove a total of 502,407 miles on a total of 34 routes per day, transporting 2,098 students, all while meeting your number one goal, which is keeping your kids safe from major injury. So thank you. Thank you again. I'm hoping that those of us on the inside of the building will get better at letting you know how much we appreciate you because of what you do at the beginning of the Students' Day. And it matters so much all day long. You get them started off well, and we'll try to continue the momentum. Okay, so the content of this training will take about 45 minutes to an hour, although there will be a few places in the training I will ask that you stop this PowerPoint and have a facilitated conversation with those of you in the room. Use the opportunity to learn from each other. After all, you are the experts. You have the experience doing this very job, not me. The first objective then is we are going to review the Positive Behavioral and Interventions and Supports Model, PBIS. And most of you know this material, so it will be a review. But like many of the things that we do, when it becomes rote, we can forget why we do what we do. So we're going to start there with a very brief review. The second goal for this training is that we're going to talk about the standardization of our expectations under the umbrella rules of safe, respectful, and responsible. So these broad umbrella expectations are taught through using examples and non-examples, what the behavior looks like or doesn't look like. We'll talk about that for a bit. We are going to create a plan for teaching those expectations. That is the third major objective of this training. Big idea there is what you want, you teach. The fourth objective is we're going to share additional strategies for reducing behavioral issues on your bus. And these strategies are well researched. And by the way, these strategies work for all of us, not just kids. We'll talk more about that when we get there. And also, this is a place that I'm going to ask you to stop the slideshow and share your wisdom with each other. And lastly, we are going to calibrate our responses for writing bus citations, what we would write them for, when we would write them, why we would write them. We want our citation data to be about student behavior, not about our tolerance level or our pet peeves, etc. Anyway, more about that when we get there. Okay, first objective. In a nutshell, what we want to talk about is the philosophy of PBIS, and it is represented in this pyramid that is on the screen in front of you. So when you are thinking about the green zone, you're thinking about most of the kids, most of the time, are self-managing their own behavior. They're doing the right things for the right reasons, and they have intrinsic value for doing so. So it's in this green zone, our work as adults is to make sure we notice that behavior and that we frequently draw attention and express appreciation for the behavior that we want and want more of. If and as we do this, it increases the likelihood that the behavior is going to be sustained. At times, they may need some supplemental teaching or correcting, but again, the green zone is where we want most of the students, most of the time, demonstrating and modeling the behavior we want more of. In fact, we want all of our writers to have this behavior. Ironically, the green zone behavior is the easiest to ignore because it causes no threat. But that's where we get the biggest bang for our buck, is when we actively acknowledge the behavior that we want more of, which is green zone behavior. So discipline yourself to see it and then honor it along the way. Okay, yellow zone. The yellow zone is maybe 15% of your writers. These are the students who need a second dose of teaching the expectations and a whole lot more monitoring and a whole lot more encouragement in order to self-manage. So our goal at this level is to help them build their own intrinsic value for doing the right thing, even if we aren't watching. To intervene by giving clear instructions on acceptable behavior, and then follow that up with giving them liberal doses of positive attention every chance their behavior allows us to. I'm sure you've heard of the old adage, any attention is good attention. Well, in the yellow zone, we want to attend to the behavior we want more of, rather than always concentrating on the negative. And now we get to the red zone. Hopefully this is only 5% or less of your writers. And well, you know who these kids are. And you also know how many stops you have before they get on your bus or off. And you definitely know their names, and likely so do your partners or your spouses. We can also refer to them as the Cheers gang. Remember that show where everybody knows their name? So part of the philosophy of the pyramid is that when red zone behavior completely demands our attention, as it will at different points, we're able to attend, and the rest of the bus doesn't spiral out of control. We want to have given the green and the yellow zone the attention and the instruction that they need so that they're able to self-manage when we're called on to intervene with red zone behavior. I also want to mention that red zone behavior on your bus needs a comprehensive team of people offering formal support to that student and to you. If students are truly operating in the red zone and need that level of your support, it is not just your responsibility. I hope that's helpful information. So I would suggest that you place your attention to where you have the most influence, to where you have the greatest ability to intervene, and that is with the green and or the yellow, by setting a tone in your classroom, which in your case is the bus, a place where students feel safe, where they feel respected, and you're all responsible to and with each other. Okay. We are already on to our second objective, which is to standardize our expectations under the umbrella rules of safe, respectful, and responsible, then create a plan for teaching those expectations. So, although much of this work has already been completed, I would caution that this is something that needs to be reviewed and tweaked if and as necessary every single year before starting school. As you know, complacency can be the precursor for careless work, which is not what Eagle Point bus drivers are known for. So let's review together what our agreements are for this year. And that would be our agreement about the expected behaviors are safe, respectful, and responsible. So these three umbrella expectations are really designed to do two things. The first thing is that they capture all the behavior. I've not really found a behavior that couldn't be included in one of these three, either safe, respectful, or responsible. And secondly, they are designed to create higher order thinking skills. We want our students to be able to think about how their behavior, how it applies in different settings. and to be able to generalize that. So because of that, we want to teach our riders to do just that, to be able to determine if their behavior falls inside or outside the definition. And so we want to get very clean, very clear, and very specific about what safe, respectful, and responsible looks like and sounds like. So I'm hoping that you have a behavior matrix now right in front of you, and I want you to take a look at that. I know that on the screen it's very small, so hopefully you have a hard copy to look at. There are two pages of your behavior expectation matrix, and it covers 6 different locations and our activities, starting with waiting for the bus. What does it look like to be safe while I wait for the bus? And what does respectful and responsible look like and sound like when I'm waiting for the bus? How about getting on the bus, riding the bus? The second page, you can look at it in a minute. How does it look like and sound like to exit the bus, to go on field trips? And then lastly, bus evacuations. There's 6 total. So this matrix is what the bus drivers that came before you have already discussed, agreed to, and clearly defined. But again, this is one of the documents that need to be looked at each year, and consensus needs to be built among the drivers, because one of the easiest ways to promote inappropriate behavior on your bus is if there is inconsistency among the different drivers. It goes along the same concept as when mom and dad aren't on the same page. Our smart kids learn very quickly how to manipulate getting the answer they want or getting by with the behavior they want to get by with. We need to close the loop. We need to be on the same page. That's on us. So create predictability and consistency among your ridership by saying, by teaching, by monitoring, and recognizing the behavior that we have all agreed is acceptable. So next we're going to take a look at the lesson plans that were developed to coincide with these 6 behavior expectations. But first, as an expectation for you, the driver, it is to get familiar, very familiar with this behavior expectation matrix. In fact, do it before you ever leave the driveway. These are our running orders right here. So we have 2 pages of behavior matrix, and then we get to explicitly teaching expectations. These are the big ideas. When it comes to teaching the expectations that are listed very explicitly on the matrix, we want to be specific and to the point. We want to use examples and non-examples. We want to tell them what we want in positive language, not what we don't want. And, just for a little fun, mix it up by demonstrating the behavior, if at all possible. So, you have in front of you, I'm just so hoping, that you have in front of you at least 3 of the lesson plans. Again, these were developed based on the matrix, based on the consensus of the school bus drivers that came before you. And notice that the expectation, when you look at that school bus expectation and procedures and lesson plan, it has the expectation explicitly spelled out. It's written in positive terms, and it gives both examples and non-examples of safe, respectful, and responsible when it comes to waiting for the bus. And then you will see the next one is, and then when you're getting on the bus, and the next one when you're riding the bus. Again, what I'll ask you to do is take time after this training to get very familiar with the lesson plans, because this is what you will use to teach your students the expectations. And this is what all of the other riders or drivers are doing. These lesson plans are written to used as a teaching tool. Don't just read them, actually use them. And we are on the next objective. We want to share additional strategies for reducing behavior issues on your bus. And what we're going to talk about are green zone strategies. And this is actually where, at the end of this section, I'm going to ask that you stop this recording and that you, with anybody else in the room, have a conversation about things that you know work, things that you have tried, tools that are in your tool chest. After all, you guys are the experts. I do want to mention, what do I have here? 6. I want to mention 6 of them. The first one, positive relationships are essential. In fact, they are a non-negotiable. We can get kids to do stuff sometimes because we're bigger than they are, or we can threaten them that we're going to tell their parents or their teachers. But that means they're likely doing it out of fear or manipulation versus doing something good or right or well because of their own intrinsic value and self-motivation for doing so. It's amazing what we will do, both kids and adults, for those people we have a relationship with. So build on that relationship bank account. Then when or if you need to call on it, it's there. One really easy way to start creating a relationship is to know their names. So know them and then use them. Second green zone strategy is, next to using relationships to manage behavior on the bus, consistency and predictability are your friends. So consistency reduces the limit testing because students quickly can see and experience that regardless of the day of the week or what student you're dealing with, your reaction is the same. You're being fair, and as you know, kids have excellent fairness detectors. And by the way, so do we. For example, how many of you have been pulled over by a policeman and your first reaction is you want to say, well, did you not see the other 10 cars that just went by me? Fairness is a big deal for all of us. Consistency actually promotes kids feeling like you're fair, and that is going to reduce some behavior that you don't want if you are consistent across the board. Predictability is about the setting, the schedule. It's about the climate that you as the driver can set on the bus. It's about kids being able to can count on how things go down on this bus with this driver, thereby reducing anxiety. Reducing anxiety has a positive effect all on its own. It helps kids relax psychologically, contributing to a calmer and less hypervigilant response from the riders. So think about this in terms of your own life. Where do you go that you automatically know you'll be safe, physically and emotionally? And where do you go that you're anxious about what it's going to be like after you get there? You can feel the difference, right? Offer that gift to your students and take your own data on how it literally changes the atmosphere or the climate on your bus route when you offer consistency and predictability. Next, notice and quickly acknowledge the behaviors that you want more of. In order to self-manage, we all first have to become aware of a behavior. You've likely read the research that the first thing people are asked to do when starting on a diet is to write down everything they eat. That's because we can become so unaware of our actions and of our behavior that we sometimes need something outside of ourselves to bring attention to it. So to write the list of everything we eat and then to look at it, we can wow ourselves. Hey, same thing with kids. Giving them feedback on their appropriate behavior increases the likelihood that then they can start seeing it for themselves and repeating it and doing it again. Because always, it always goes from self-awareness to self-monitoring to self-management. And self-management is our goal, right? So giving feedback by acknowledging what they are doing well helps increase the likelihood that they can do it even when we're not watching. Next, establish rapport as soon as you possibly can after correction. So, thinking of this in adult terms again, after you've had words with a coworker or with your partner or with your neighbor, whomever, can you recall that uncomfortable feeling you have until things are back on track, until the ice has been broken? Again, as for adults, so it is for kids. If you've had to correct a behavior, there is this vulnerable time where students may be deciding whose side they're going to be on. So make sure it's yours. Your focus should now be on increasing the amount in your relationship bank account that you lost during the correction, because correction on a behavior does take a hit on the behavior on the bank account. So try to rebuild that. Try to find opportunities to rebuild your relationship as soon as you can after you have needed to correct a student. Next, matter of fact, language and tone. During correction, say what you need to say, reteach the expectation, and move on. Don't provide students the opportunity to escalate the situation by upping the ante, by increasing the intensity and having you match it. Authority really doesn't need to be loud or long. It just needs to be clear and concise. So appearing calm, anything but shook up or undone by their behavior is an intervention all of its own. So control the situation by being clear, measured, and calm. And the last thing I will mention is provide active supervision. And I really think of this in terms of two separate things. So scanning and monitoring with your ears and your eyes. So you don't always have to hear the behavior that is problematic. Sometimes you can just figure it out by watching certain interactions. And I think of that when it comes to boys and to girls, and the difference often between how boys bully versus how girls bully. And you can think about that. You probably also can think about the difference, where a lot of times boys are louder when they're bullying, they're more physical, and often girls, it's when they are huddled up and they are quiet and you can't really hear what's going on. Get suspicious. Get over there and scan and monitor in order that you can provide some green zone intervention. So this is the place of the training that I would love for you to stop the slideshow, and with whomever is in the room, have an opportunity to learn from each other. I would ask that someone would facilitate the conversation and concentrate in this conversation on sharing interventions in the green and or yellow zone. Share those strategies and interventions. It's always tempting to think about red, but like we talked about earlier, we want to make sure that the majority of our ridership is able to self-manage. Remember, concentrate on what you want more of. Okay, we are at the last objective on our training for today. It is called calibrating our responses. So first, before we do anything about this, I want to talk about why we would even do this work. Why is calibrating our responses important? So if we have done what we've already talked about in this presentation, like we've gained consensus among all of you as drivers on what is acceptable behavior and what is not, And we've taught those behaviors consistently across all the routes with all the students. We've used the green zone interventions and strategies we talked about to manage most of the behavior. Now we're at a place that we need to have data to help us zero in on those behaviors in those students who need additional interventions and services. As we get clearer and cleaner about when and why we would actually write a bus citation, then we're able to offer those students who need something additional, they're communicating that by their behavior, by the way, that they're telling us they need additional interventions and support. Remember, PBIS, positive behavioral interventions and support, is about just that. It's getting students what they need in order to shape their behavior so they can be successful. So when we are going to do this work of calibrating our responses to behavior, I want you to think about these big ideas. Calibrating our consistent use of the bus citation is the only way to have clean data for decision making. Decisions about when and if a student needs an intervention and what that intervention should be, actually. Decisions about writing or not writing a bus citation. And that is always in conjunction with the definition matrix. You should have a hard copy of the definition matrix right there for you to do this work right now. The definition matrix is always based on these rules: the frequency, the duration, and the intensity of the behavior is what helps us decide the intervention. So keep those big ideas in mind as you actually start moving through these calibration exercises as a team. So the instructions would be for you to group up in groups of 2 or 3. One of you reads the scenario. There's 4 scenarios on your slide. And now, using your definition matrix that is right beside you, I want you to decide what intervention would be called upon after having witnessed the behavior that we have just talked about in the scenario. I hope that makes sense. After you, as small groups, have had a chance to hear what the behavior is and look at the definition matrix, I want you then as a group to talk about, so where did we land? How close are we? What clarifying questions did we have or need to have answered before we could decide? Why this is important? It's because students, as they graduate up through the pyramid with their behavior, they're asking for, they might not admit this, but they're asking for additional interventions because currently they're not able to self-manage. We want to get to where we so consistently draw the line at where we say, now this student is above or below the line. Below the line means they can self-manage. Above the line means they need something in addition. We want to help get there. So go ahead and shut off the video, follow the instructions that I just outlined, have a rich discussion, and then come back together, and we are just about close. We're just about ready to finish up. Okay, I hope the last activity was very, very helpful for all of you. Now we have one more slide, and then we are going to close. So I'm just going to be very straightforward in saying that the district, as well as Ed Hayes, has had a conversation about developing a process in order that you can all know before you ever leave the parking lot with any of your students on board who is medically fragile, who may have special needs, who may be on a 504 or an IEP, so that you know what students may need special assistance.
Okay, we have come to the end of this training. Other than I have one last thing I would like to say. I hope that you access the expertise that is around you. There are some very, very good bus drivers that if you have questions, go to them. Ask questions, get the information that you need, observe them when you can. Because what I know for sure is that our students need us. They need us to be the best we can be in order to help them get the best education that they can get. So thank you for doing what you do and have a very successful year.